Hi there. Welcome to Business Leadership Podcast. In this podcast, we interview successful business leaders and industry experts to help you grow your business. In this episode, I had a discussion with Dr. Alan Zimmerman, executive leadership coach, keynote speaker with over 3,000 presentations, and he's also author of three books. His first book is Brave Questions, Building Stronger Relationships by Asking All the Right Questions. And the second book is A Pivot, How One Turn in Attitude Can Lead to a Success. And a third book is The Payoff Principle. Discover the three secrets for getting what you want out of life and work. His articles and the blogs are also published in various leadership magazines, such as the CEO magazines and various others. Now, this was very interesting discussion. Dr. Zimmerman shared some of the current challenges around communication and leadership. He also talked about a book, Brave Questions, and shared some of the most common questions, and also share a process how somebody can develop these questions for themselves. We also talk about 4C principles for leadership, which is communication, cooperation, commitment, and change. And he also shared perspective on the impact of technology on the current economic and financial challenges. I hope you find this discussion interesting and find a value as much as I did. If you like this discussion, I only have a one ask. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And my commitment to you is I will make these discussions better with every episode. So until next time, please welcome Dr. Alan Zimmerman. Hi guys, welcome to Business Leadership Podcast. Today our guest is someone very special from far away, Dr. Alan Zimmerman. Dr. Zimmerman, your area of expertise, leadership and communications is much needed these days. So I'm looking forward to a discussion, looking forward to learning from you. Thank you so much for your time today.
I'm privileged to be here. Thanks so much, Gurmeet.
Okay. So let's talk about both leadership and communication. What do you see some of the challenge? You've been helping with a lot of leaders. Where you see some of the struggles are these days with what's going on in the world?
I think there's a major issue going on in terms of who can you trust. It comes from the media. It comes from interpersonal interactions that in some degrees I see in the past we were in a pattern where opposing points of view would argue, debate their points of view, and from that would come the truth. I'm finding more of a tendency these days for people to say this is the truth and cancel those who have a different point of view. And I think that's a dangerous path to take in communication. We need to, as we used to say, be careful of killing the messenger. Well, now we're kind of canceling the messenger. And it's a dangerous path.
So where do you think the challenge is coming from? Is it from a communication standpoint or just understanding? We use some of both side of that argument and analyze it, and then you make your judgment which one is right, which one is wrong. But looks like we're just going after one set of opinion and just forming our own judgment based on one set of information.
Yeah. There's been certainly an over politicization of almost every topic on every discussion, and that's cutting down the conversation. I love a better response would be, help me understand, tell me more. Instead of right away disagreeing, shutting it down, respond with those kinds of responses. Tell me more, help me understand. That creates some constructive conversation.
Got it. Got it. And bigger challenge seems to be the trust issue, what you just mentioned, is from our academia, from universities and colleges. That seems to be that's where it's starting. Looks like it, if not early on. You think that schools are doing good enough job to share both side of the analytical side of discussions?
I don't. My former profession I was a professor at a university for 15 years. And if you just look at the demographics of who is hired these days, it's 90% plus are on the left side of various political opinions. Less than 10% have an opposing point of view. So what used to be considered a marketplace of free ideas doesn't exist nearly as much anymore.
Got it.
So that I find troubling.
Got it. So let's, the trust part is something I think it's very complex. We may not be able to fix a lot of, in a political side segment is different. Business side is going to be different. But let's talk about communication side of things. We have a lot of and you've seen before technology and you've seen with the technology as well, right? So did we make a progress? Technology is supposed to give you a lot of information. There's so much media there that provide tons of information. So is the communication got better where we were before, or is getting worse with the technology?
We have more information, less connection. I think we're living in a time when we have more connection, or I should say, perhaps more information and less engagement. We're inundated with information, stuff coming at us all of the time. And we live in a world where we're having all of this stuff come at us, and almost to survive, we're throwing out a lot of information that may be relevant. Uh, I even see, I'm sure you do too, people texting people who are just down the hallway 25 feet instead of getting up and talking.
Yeah.
What we're suffering from is a lack of engagement, actual practice. It used to be when you and I were growing up, you'd go out and play in the yard with your friends, you would talk with the neighbor kids, you would talk all day long. Now we have a barrier between you and face to face interaction. There's all the technology. It does make things efficient and quick, but not always effective. So, like, if you look at the research, we're getting between growing up years through graduation from college about 75,000 hours less of face to face interaction than we used to get. That's a lot less practice in understanding and listening and conflict resolution. Those chances are just not there.
Mhm. And that kind of, if you account COVID part of that, even in the workplaces where people start working on decentralized environment, in even as adults, we work on a remote, the way we're talking right now, we work in a decentralized environment. So that piece what you just mentioned, that these workforce coming into workplaces, they used to that not having in person discussions, and now we bring into the Zoom calls and all those calls, team calls. How does that impacting our workplaces?
For example, I'm always called to deliver training programs and leadership to various corporations around the world. And it's interesting when some CEO calls me and they'll say, I presume this will be a virtual meeting, right? And my next question is, I'll come and show up in person. We can do it live in person or virtual. What's your objective? If your objective is simply throwing out information, virtual is fine. If you're trying to build a culture and trying to engage the people into a team kind of feeling, that takes face to face. We have found no substitute that works better than face to face if you want to create, build, reinforce relationships and culture. And so people are missing or mixing up. What's the purpose? Information or engagement?
So you mentioned that engagement versus communication and information. So how does the problem becomes part of a lot of leaders gotta solve the problem in a business world as well. Their teams are working in a decentralized environment as well. So how do they solve this engagement problem when everybody's decentralized, or they're hiring people around the world from different countries to move business forward?
Well, technology is here to stay and it gives a lot of wonderful benefits. And so I realize with international teams, cross functional teams, not possible to get together like we used to in a face to face meeting, but you can still have engagement. If you put into the meetings a few moments for people to actually engage as human beings. So it's not just an agenda, point one, two, three, four, give your opinion, check off, go to the next meeting. For example, you're familiar with my book on brave questions. Really pushing people to engage at a little deeper level at least once in a while. So I know who I'm talking to, not just throwing information at another human being. I think most of us operate on what I call functional communication. What time is the meeting? When is this report due? How many people will be there? Yes, we must know those things to survive, but they don't build engagement or teamwork. That uh, requires a deeper question, what I call brave questions. Who, what, when, where, why, how questions.
Got it. The book Brave Question was very thought provoking book. I enjoyed going through the book first of all, and kudos to you for writing. But that your segment of writing 20 question every area, that takes a lot of hard work. You gotta do a lot of thinking before you come up with those questions. how did you come? How did you get the idea of writing this book? And what do you see people? What process people going through writing those 20 questions? That's a lot of work, and I'm I'm thinking the questions gonna be changing over the time as well, right? What questions do you have today? It may not be the same, 6 months from now.
Absolutely. We talk about 20 questions would be an ideal amount of time, a number of questions to have a one-on-one intense conversation or small group discussion. Now, that takes a lot of time. We can't do that very often in today's world. What we can do is put a brave question perhaps in the beginning of a meeting. Let's say you have an hour meeting scheduled. There's 6 people at the meeting. It might be starting out the conversation with something as simple as, well, what's been the highlight of your week that you can share with us? What's something you've learned in the last 6 months that you think might be important for all of us? It might be, what are your top 3 goals for the next 2 weeks? It could be, what makes you laugh? 1,000 questions. Brave question means typically questions we don't ask and don't know the answer to, but reveals something about the other person. I've found many of my groups, my organizations will do that now. Go around the circle, have a brave question. Each person takes a few seconds, a minute. Maybe it adds 5 minutes to the meeting, 10 minutes. But they tell me the productivity and the depth is so much better when they then get into the content of making decisions.
Hmm. So, what is the goal of those brave questions that are Zimmerman? Is it intention is to understand other person better, or is it understanding what we have a meeting for, or company goals? What is the intention? What is the goal of these questions when you have a you just said improve communication? Is if that's what it is?
It's build relationships. I want to know who you are, and you know who I am. I want to build the relationships, which leads to trust. That can lead to liking, and that leads to easier discussion and agreement on next steps or action. So they're different than a task. It's not a task, a decision, information processing. It's all about building the relationships that people tend to work with, people that they know, like, and trust. And you don't get to know, like, and trust them without talking to them about something more personal.
Got it. Got it. So, how do you develop these questions? If you're meeting different people every meeting, you haven't met people, or it's a sales conversation. How do you develop these questions?
Well, of course, simple answer would be buy my book, but you can develop your own questions, millions of possible questions out there.
Yeah.
Could be the chairperson of the meeting comes with a question and throws it out to the group. I have a few simple rules that I suggest. It's a question they typically don't know the answer to. People have a right to pass. They have a right to say, sure, I'll answer the question, but you go first. There's confidentiality. What we talk about stays here. It's for our
Hmm.
group. A great technique is also if you've got a small group that meets on a regular basis, rotate it. Next time, John. Next time, Mary Ellen. Next time, you bring the question. So each person has some ownership for getting to know this team better.
Got it. Good stuff. So, did those questions were part of the book, The Service Payoff? Was that before this one, or was it after this one? Did those questions also made up into customer service book as well? When you talk about customer service.
That Service Payoff is a book I wrote after the Brave Questions book. And I take the premise that everybody in my life is a customer. My wife is by far my most important customer on earth. My employees are my customers. All of the people I speak to, work with, and coach, they're my customers. And every customer is a walking bundle of need. If I can stop for a few seconds and ask myself one question, what does that person need the most right now? Do something to meet that need, we have engagement. And basically, they have one of 5 needs. They need to feel welcome, comfortable, understood, important, and appreciated. At any given time, one of those 5 needs is predominant. It might be in the beginning of the call, they need to feel welcome, that I really want to talk to them. They're welcome into my space. They might need to feel like they're appreciated. Their work is noticed by somebody else. But if I recognize they're a customer, recognize what their need might be, do something to meet the need, we've got engagement.
Looks like we dropped the connection a little bit. So I just want to make sure that we capture those five things you mentioned. If you can just go over. One was appreciative, and the second was communication. What was another three?
Everybody has one of five needs.
Okay.
We have all of them all the time, but there's always one that's predominant. First need, I need to feel welcome. Welcome on the call, welcome in your office, welcome in your presence. Secondly, feel comfortable. I can feel safe to say what I really think, want, feel. Thirdly, understood. That you're listening to me. You really understand my thoughts, my feelings. Fourthly, I feel important. I count. I matter in this organization, in this discussion. And lastly, on a personal basis, me, my work, I'm appreciated.
Got it. Got it. So I'm providing a customer service, how do I understand which one is important today? Which one is somebody's driven by today? What do we have to handle?
Well, it goes back to the brave questions again. If you ask the right questions, you'll know what their needs are. It may be a question something along the lines of, John, I haven't heard you say too much in the meeting today. Just wondering where you're at. He might say, I'm feeling confused. I'm feeling left out.
Got it.
Then I might know that he needs more listening time. He needs more appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
One of these phrases that changed my life is I was in a discussion, perhaps an argument with my wife. And she said, would you please just treat me like a customer? And off went the fireworks because I was doing things to her that I would never do to my customers or coworkers. That when she was talking, I'm looking at my phone. She's talking, I'm checking my email. She's talking, I'm shuffling papers on my desk. She's talking, I'm doing something else. She's talking, saying, yeah, I said, go ahead, I can hear you. Go ahead, I can hear you. I would never do those things to a coworker or to a customer, but I was doing it to my wife.
Uh,
And so I use that phrase all the time. I'm in business meetings. Am I treating everybody there like they are a very important customer, whether they're equal, subordinate, superior, it makes no difference. Just treat me like a customer. And that'll tell you how to behave.
yeah. And when we measure customer service or we measure engagement, we just look at CSAT score or NPS score. These are items never become part of that. We never get to measure these things. Are we engaged? Are we caring about people's if they want to be heard? Are we paying attention to that? And these things never come. It's just a true and false kind of in a CSAT score that is a customer happy or not, right? So these things are a little bit difficult to measure. Any way these could be measured and addressed in the customer service scenarios, Dr. Zimmerman?
You're making a very good point. When we do surveys, we think when customers say they're satisfied, we've got good, loyal customers. They are not the same thing. As you may know, the research 40% of those who say they're satisfied with your service will switch to the competition if they get better service, better feelings, better price somewhere else.
Mhm.
And one of the ways to get around just a plain yes, no, satisfied, not satisfied is have people, whether it's interviews or written answer, tell us about a highlight that made you feel really good. What stood out as a interaction that you won't long forget? It felt memorable. Because customer service isn't just providing a product at the right time at the right price. It's also being a little bit different and memorable.
Yeah. And that's where we miss a lot of the time with targets, right? Just because I solved the problem you call me about does not mean that I went out of my way to provide the customer service what you just talked about. I solved the problem. Yeah, the score is gonna come that okay, the customer is satisfied. But if I was rude to the customer or if I was not handling that emotional piece right, that's never gonna come out until I ask those questions. What was the highlight of this engagement?
A simple example, I travel all the time to speak. I went to pick up a rental car at an airport terminal. The lady gave me very good customer service, knew all about collision damage waivers, frequent flyer miles, the Hertz Gold Card, all of the good stuff. However, when she gave me back the contract, she said, thank you, ma'am. And I went, "Whoa, what?" She's never even looked at me. It was just processing a paper, getting the contract onto the next customer. Despite the fact her service was efficient, it wasn't effective, and I didn't feel special at all. Think misidentified.
Yeah. Yeah, and how do you quantify that stuff? How do you measure that? It's and you're never gonna mention that in piece of a survey that we get after every service, right? And there was other side of the services as well, where it's even a lot of a nonverbal customer service. If you go in person to some restaurants, some hotels you go to, um, and they welcome you, even though the service may not be there, but you felt better, and you will always go back to the same restaurant, same hotels.
Absolutely. Nonverbal you mentioned, we've got plenty of research on that. That waiters, waitresses that smile at their customers receive an average 35% more tips than those that don't smile. They may not even give as good a service as the other person, but they
Mm.
smiled. That human
Uh,
interaction piece.
so just making the human connection can change the perception of it. You know what the service. Very interesting. Where you see some of the good example of customer service you know another way of looking at that is because we deal with a lot of companies overseas, whether they're providing our phone services or internet service, are we, and their customer service standards is, compared to the language they speak the same language, but people still get frustrated. So are we lowering our customer service standards by seeing those overseas services, or it just that's how it is these days?
We're lowering the quality of the service to make it quicker, more efficient, and cost effective, not always more satisfactory. Um, Call centers, of course, grade people, give them bonuses on how many people they can process. And I think we're making a big mistake when the emphasis is on processing customers rather than serving customers. One is a numbers game, the second one is a relationship interaction.
Got it. So let's talk about business leaders who are listening to us, who are watching us. If the business leader wants to work on a communication in a team, or they want to improve engagement, what sort of step they can take? Where do they start if they want to embark on these journeys? Where do they start, and how do they go about it?
One of the first things is improve your listening skills. When we survey employees, what are you looking for in a boss, a leader? Among the top three, they always say, want the boss to be a good listener. Doesn't feel good to work for a person who doesn't think we, the employees, are worth listening to. So, highly valued characteristic. But the research also says that the average untrained listener is tuned in just 25% of the time. That means most of the time they are daydreaming or thinking of their next response, not truly listening well. When leaders are scored well, almost always amongst that score is he or she listens. They really listen well. And if you'd like, I can give you a simple.
Yes, lead.
I would suggest to the listeners use what I call the stable system, STABLE.
Here.
It's a nonverbal way of positioning your body to listen because something like 80-90% of the emotional impact is a nonverbal. You can say all the right things to somebody. I'm listening. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. But if it doesn't look like it, they don't buy it. So the first thing you must do is put yourself in position to listen. S stands for squarely face the talker. Whether it's your camera on a Zoom call or it's face to face in an office, facing them. I could face in this direction right now, and you can still see the side of my face on the screen. For a face to face interaction, I could hear you, my ear would be in that direction, but you wouldn't feel like I care that much to squarely face them. If you're looking any other direction, your mind tends to wander and they feel less important. The T in stable is tip your head occasionally. When you're
Okay.
talking, they're wondering, are you following along? Just like you're doing right now, Gurmeet. You're just kind of tipping the head. That tells me that you're following.
Mm-hmm.
A is attentive facial expressions. If you're talking to somebody else and their face is blank, they're not there.
Okay.
And you don't make up facial expression. It'd be dumb to contort the face in different ways, but there should be some reaction, some emotion that comes on the face. B of stable is barrier-free focus. Don't have too many things between you and the other person. If you come to my office and I have a computer between us, my arms are crossed, my legs are crossed, there's several feet, and stuff between us. Chances are you'll walk out of the office and say, "Oh, I forgot to ask that question, didn't make that point." It's happened to all of us. We don't feel comfortable with all those barriers. To get rid of some of them. But barrier-free focus also says just listen. The reason we get angry at our husband or wife who's watching TV or reading the paper as we talk is they're communicating a judgment. They're saying, even before you begin speaking, I have decided it's not worth my full attention. I don't care that much, which lowers their self-esteem and makes them defensive. Same thing in a job. You can't be checking your notes, looking at your email, and build a relationship. You just focus. That's STAB.
Okay.
L is lean forward. If I lean towards you a little bit, I'm saying, I don't want to miss this. You're important to me. Your comments are important. Communicates a different message to lean away. If I'm leaning back like this in my chair, do I get too close, too involved, put my feet up at the desk? I can listen that way, but you wouldn't feel I care that much. Lean forward. And E is eye contact. I have to look at the person. Doesn't have to be constant, but pretty good eye contact. If I'm looking at my watch, looking at my papers, I'm suddenly saying, hurry up, get out of here. If you will do those 6 things, you'll triple your listening efficiency from 25% to at least 75% for one simple reason. When you're in position to listen, you tend to do nothing but listen. It's a great technique. It works like magic.
And a lot of people miss on this stuff. I interview a lot of people as well on a daily basis because I hire a lot of young people, and
Yeah.
and they're not engaged. Missing all those. What you just mentioned, that the list of stable. All of that stuff is missing out of those.
Yeah, my wife and I were at dinner last night. Husband, wife, their 3 kids. Every one of them was at the table on a device. Nobody was talking. This is a crazy world.
Wow. Technology is not helping. A lot of AI stuff these days as well. Any thoughts on that? We can generate all the text, all the information from AI. And I was listening to a very interesting discussion yesterday. And Simon Sinek, I'm not sure if you heard of his written a book. So he made a valid point. The point he made was AI is when you punch something in AI, you ask for a question, it give you the end result of it, everything. So, if you look at in how could be the perfect writer, so it's going to give you techniques. How can I do this? It's going to give you techniques. So it's giving you an end result. Where communication and building leadership is a journey. You go through the journey and you become a better leader and you become a better communicator. Whereas technology is giving you an end result, how to do this 10-step process, how to be that. What are your thoughts on that? It's missing that journey part. What he mentioned, because that's what makes you better communicator, better leaders, because you've gone through certain journeys. Doing the journey, you learn different skill sets.
Well, I look at leadership effectiveness as a 3-legged stool.
Okay.
Each leg of the stool represents a different part of leadership effectiveness. One leg of the stool is the product. Whatever you're selling, the information, the service, everybody's involved in some kind of product. And most leaders are really good at products because they wouldn't have moved up to that position without being great at some product knowledge. The second leg of the stool is process. AI fits into that. So we organize our structures, the way we have team meetings, the way we do our business. We have processes. And most leaders are pretty good at that, or they wouldn't be high-level leaders. The third leg is the people leg. 3 Ps: products, process, and people.
Mm-hmm.
Almost every leader in the organizations I teach or I speak, the common complaint is these leaders have been promoted to positions of leadership, but the skills they had before are not at all similar to the skills required now to be an effective leader. That third leg, people skills, leadership skills, communication skills, They may not have had much training in whatsoever. What all three legs are working well, you get the top of the stool, which is productivity, profitability, effectiveness. So AI is serving that process quite well, but we're still not doing much with that people part.
So what change in a people? Is there something change over the years, or are we missing the ball? We're not training people properly. So what are we missing in the people side of triangle?
Well, for example, mentioned listening thing. Most people are untrained in listening. Most people know very little about giving constructive, positive, or negative feedback. And years ago, we heard that feedback is the breakfast of champions. It's true. The number one job complaint. I've been teaching for about 25 years. The number one job complaint has not changed one bit in 25 years. And that is you can do 100 things right and not hear a darn thing about it. Do one thing wrong, they're right in your back. We've all heard that. Strange thing is, everybody knows that's the number one complaint, but it's still the same complaint because things aren't changing that much.
Hmm.
Partly because some people have never been trained in how to give positive, motivating, constructive feedback. They don't know how to do it for some people. Others, they'll tend to use the cop out, well, if I don't say anything, you can assume everything's okay. That's really stupid. Every place else in life, when people aren't talking to us, we get the silent treatment. We don't interpret that as good news. We think it's bad news. But now we go to a job and the boss doesn't talk to us and we think that's good news? Doesn't make sense. And even though the employee may know that he or she has done a good job, they always need to know that you have noticed they've done a good job and you've commented. In the US, when you fly a plane, there's the TSA, Transportation Security Administration. And they have a sign that says, if you see it, say it. It's a great slogan, leaders. If you see something good, say it. People need to hear it.
Yeah.
Same is true about negative feedback. People hate confrontation, hate conflict because they've never been taught how to do it. How do you give constructive feedback without the person getting defensive, that they hear you and actually follow through? These things that make effective leaders, some have learned the hard way, some through some training, but a lot of people are still wondering, how do you do it?
Hmm. Very interesting. And these little details, especially leaders gotta have those conversations all the time, whether it's with the team, whether it's with the competitors, or whether with the suppliers. You have to have those conversations. Otherwise, it's not a business you're in. So if you don't learn the skill set, how do you manage all these people, that the stakeholders that you deal with on a daily basis?
For example, many leaders, as I was saying, give very little or not nearly enough positive feedback.
Hmm.
Others tend to avoid the negative feedback because who likes a conflict? It doesn't feel comfortable giving bad news. I give our listeners right now a quick technique to make it easier to give negative feedback. Ask yourself 3 questions before you open your mouth and say anything negative to somebody. It's what I call filters. If you can answer yes to all 3 questions, open your mouth and speak. What comes out will be constructive, not destructive. First question, is it true? In other words, the feedback I'm going to give you, it's not based on hearsay, hunch, guess, I think so, I've seen it, I've heard it, I've got evidence, I know what I'm talking about, it's true.
Yeah.
If I can say, yeah, I know this feedback is true, go to the second question. Is it necessary? And yes, sometimes it's necessary that people know that they're screwing up, that they made a mistake, they're going in the wrong direction. I wouldn't be much of a coach if I didn't give them that kind of feedback. Other times it's not worth the effort, and so it's not necessary. I let it slide. Is it
Yeah.
true? Is it necessary? And thirdly, is it kind? You can be upset. You can be firm. You can be
Yeah.
assertive. You can be angry, but you can still be respectful and kind. In other words, you deal with the behavior and not destroy the person. The answer to all 3 questions, yes. You're in good shape to give constructive negative feedback.
So that means you have to do some work before you start providing feedback. It's not just not off the cuff kind of. You gotta first of all find out, is it true? That you gotta do some digging, you gotta do some homework, make sure that what you which trying to provide feedback is true. Uh,
Absolutely, you're exactly right that too many leaders give negative feedback when they are in the mood or they have the time. Those aren't good guidelines at all. It's a much better guideline when I'm prepared to say it and they're prepared to hear it.
And I'm guilty of that sometime too, Dr. Zimmerman. I done that a few times that as well. I'm in a meeting. I get a negative feedback from client. The first thing I do is forward to some manager. Hey, could you take a look at that and follow up with this client? Which is not right. I'm even though I'm forwarding that what I received, but I'm not thinking through. Maybe it was not a staff fault to verify. So I'm guilty of that as well. But I think it's a great list to make sure that you're kind. You're just not forwarding what you receive and you're just sending to somebody else.
For example, a simple technique I would advise leaders to take. So you've done your thinking, as you've suggested. You've prepared your thoughts. You've gone through the 3 questions. But the other person may be having a rotten day. Their computer program crashed. They lost a customer, whatever. And the last thing you want to hear is another piece of negative feedback. So I suggest do what's called mood sampling. And mood sampling might be simple as saying, "Great, got a problem to talk to you about. Would this be a good time?" You might say, "Sure, Alan, what's on your mind?" Or you might say, "No, what?" Or suggest this may not be the best time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely, it's fine.
Uh,
Especially with this remote work, right? So you don't know what somebody else is going through because you're not sitting next to the person. If you're in an office, is different. You can just call a person. So listen, could we sit down and could we talk about it? But in a remote, we don't know. People going through a lot of family challenges. They're going through a lot of medical challenges, health challenges, or financial challenges, and simply just providing feedback, not understanding what the person is going through. I think your point is well taken. That we're a great point. That understand what the person is going through before you talk about it.
And this will sound like a strange concept, but when I'm coaching leaders, I use this phrase, and that is get permission to give them negative feedback. Most leaders take the opposite position. I'll talk because I'm the leader, and I'll talk when I feel like it and I have the time. Getting permission is the example I just gave you. Gurmeet, would this be a good time? If you say no, well, give me a time where we can sit down for 10 minutes. Will work well for you. Unless it's an emergency, which has to be dealt with right now. Most things will fall into that parameter. What's a good time? So then you're both prepared for a constructive conversation with a lot less provoking of defensiveness.
I see. But if you've done that a few times, if let's say I ask you permission few times already, and next time I ask you, hey, is it a good time to talk? There's going to be some feedback that I'm going to give you. Me adding time to that discussion, am I forcing person to think about it? It's going to be some feedback. The person's going through the time. Let's say the service level people. I say, listen, maybe let's talk this Friday, 10 in the morning. But if there's the 2-3 days to Fridays, the person is still sitting there thinking that there's going to be some feedback. There's going to be some, I done something wrong. That there's going to be some feedback. How do you deal with that?
I think you can do a couple of things. One is you can give them some indication as to how serious it is. It's a fairly minor issue, but I think we just need to clarify a couple of things.
Yeah.
Or some more serious issues, I think we should meet sooner than later. So you kind of guide them to the right amount of time. Now, you might have this works in your family as well as in your business life. Some people who will never give you permission to give negative feedback. You say, "Is this a good time?" Say, "I don't want to talk about it." That's your problem. Don't bother me with this.
Your family, especially them.
You may have kids like that. "I don't want to talk about it. Don't talk to me," or your wife, husband, whatever. Then what you do is you give them a feeling impact statement. A feeling impact statement sounds like this: John, Tom, Mary, Susan, whatever the name is. I can't make you put some time aside. I can't make you listen to what I have to say.
Yeah.
But I want you to know the consequence or the impact of us not talking about this. The impact might be our relationship is becoming more frayed. It's more difficult to work together. Our chance of getting the project done on time is less likely. Our relationship is under stress. In other words, some people are naive enough to think if we don't talk about it, it'll just go away. Let them know it's not going away, and there's a price we're paying for not talking about it. That kind of statement will get most people to get their head out of the sand and say, okay, well, let's talk about it.
Yeah. That is a great tip. I'm gonna use that in a teams because in a teams that happens all the time. You put 5 people working on a one project, and the project's not getting done, and you see there's some synergies and aligned with the team. And if you can teach them to do that, kind of deal with those their own issues. As a business leader, we got a project deliveries to a client. We're simply saying, okay, we need to deliver this for a client. So you guys need to figure out what needs to figure out and get the communication working. But this is a great tip that if they can learn that when they're talking to each other and be in the same level.
Yes, you got it.
Very, very interesting. So leaders gotta learn all these skills, especially the listening skills, the building trust. Then the next step is I think they gotta teach their teams as well. You gotta build the leaders in a team as well. So you gotta not only learn these skill set, but also you gotta train your teams on a similar skill set. How do they start that journey? How do they go about it?
Well, for example, if you're not used to giving positive feedback on a regular basis, not used to ever asking any brave questions, you start gradually and gradually increase the frequency. If you come to a meeting, whether it's virtual or face to face, and it's always been strictly business, nothing personal, now you're trying to insert some relationship pieces, brave questions, and you come on strong and heavy and quick with that. They'll think, oh boy, he or she went to another seminar. That'll fade away in a few days. In other words, they just see it as a technique and they forget about it. Or you all of a sudden giving lots of positive feedback and you never gave feedback before. If you're falling into those categories, maybe I give a piece of genuine praise for something you've accomplished tomorrow. Find something else in 10, 12 days and something else a few days later. It's gradually increasing it. So they see perhaps your style is changing, but not so quickly they doubt its sincerity.
Got it. Got it. Very interesting. In your hope,
And,
sorry, go ahead.
like the brave questions, if you're asking a tougher, braver personal question, people kind of pull back, you watch the body language, perhaps you've gone just a little too far. You ask a little lighter question instead of, what's the greatest challenge you're facing in your life? That's a pretty heavy question.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot easier to start with, what's been a highlight of your week? We can all talk about that. Watch the reaction. And as they respond, they're giving you the cues. You can go further and deeper, or that's enough for the moment.
Got it. Was there, I don't remember, for certain chapters in a Brave Question book, were there any questions for customer service area as well? People can use to build better relationship when they're providing quick customer service. It's not a in-person discussion. They're going, providing support over the remote or they want a phone calls. Were there, did you touch on that piece as well? If to build a
There are some
relationship?
questions, there's 20 chapters of 20 questions each. And it
Okay.
indicates at the beginning of each chapter where those questions would be most appropriate. Some are suggested in my service payoff book. But you get to the point where you can create your own questions that will be relevant to your group. So I would use the books as a stepping stone to you becoming quite versatile yourself and using the technique.
Got it. Got it. Understand. Beautiful. So, all right, so let's talk about your work. So those 2 books I know, there's altogether there's a 4 books you have written, right? There was another one with the payoff, or these are
So that's 6 books out.
okay.
Um, one of the biggest sellers for years and years has been called Pivot, How One Turn in Attitude Can Lead to Success.
So that was all about attitude, I guess. Where the pivot was attitude.
All about attitude, right. And my comparison is you need fuel for a car. And people can have all kinds of knowledge, skills, degrees, certifications. Without fuel, your attitude, you don't go very far. People say, I can't help the way I feel. Not true. Big fat lie. You can change it, control it. Another book is called The Payoff Principle. It's more about leadership. 3 aspects of that: purpose, process, and passion. And have those 3 things work together for your success.
That's great work. You spent a lot of years just, fixing those leadership and communication and attitude, all these kind of, interconnected together. If you can fix one or other, they all kind of impact, all those different areas.
They do. They do. Um, One thing, if people want to look at my work more deeply, go to the website called attend-the-journey, attendthejourney.com. It's a 2-day intensive class, 16 hours. I just offer it once a year and all the sells out. And it goes through all of these leadership skills with lots of practice, lots of engagement, even though it's virtual. They take it from anywhere, and probably has the most rave reviews of anything I've done. It is transformational. Attendthejourney.com.
I'm gonna put a link below this video as well for the journey. So where you spending, Dr. Zimmerman, or where you spending a lot of time? Do you still doing keynote speaking or live training? Where you spend a lot of your majority of your time?
Of course, as COVID came around, a lot of our in-person keynotes and seminars have gone virtual. So probably half of my work is, in terms of presentations, live in person, showing up, the other virtual. They both have their pros and cons. They both work. A good portion of my work is coaching leaders, CEOs, C-level people. I have people that I've worked with for 6 months, and several I've worked for as many as 4 years. That I find that CEOs and top leaders all tend to have one thing in common. They don't often have a lot of people to talk to. You can't talk to competing CEOs. You can't talk to your staff about your problems.
Yeah.
Sometimes your spouse may not understand your problems or even care. So be a
Yeah.
trusted thought leader to just brainstorm and get some feedback from. And that's been such a privilege to be that deeply involved in people's lives with that kind of trust and honor that we can give to one another.
Yeah, a lot of great keynote speaking, or videos that you posted online. I enjoy those some of those video, great stories, very entertaining. Definitely very engaging. I think that time when we used to enjoy those keynote speaking, I think COVID kind of, all the online stuff's kind of temper that. But hopefully we'll get back to that stuff, in person meetings again.
Yep, I do hope so too. We can certainly do a good job virtually, but it's hard to replace the in-person human element.
Yeah, yeah. So where can people find you? How can they connect with you if they wanna, have a conversation or they wanna, talk to you? Where can they find you? How can they connect with you?
Website is very simple, just drzimmerman.com. That's drzimmerman.com. Got 1,200 articles there, free of charge, all kinds of videos, lots of information. Feel free to email me. I literally read all my emails and I answer every single email that comes in. I'm not inaccessible. I want to be valuable like you are in your business. We're
Thank
here
you.
for people.
Yep. I'm gonna put out your contact information below the video. People are gonna click a link to, and definitely, your books. There. I will definitely encourage people to check out your books. I enjoyed. I went through 2 or 3 books. Enjoyed it. Questions. 20 questions are one of my favorite. This is where I spend time. Early on, I learned that in a business that because I do a lot of sales meeting, that questions are powerful. So I can ask. I'm getting in gathering information and solving a problem based on what questions I'm asking. So the only tool I have in these meetings are questions. So if I can refine my questions over the time, I'll get a better quality information. I'll serve these people better. So I always, one of my ritual is every weekend I gonna sit down and look at my questions I'm asking. I keep refining those questions, and over the last 10 years, those questions got better and better. I know because that's my tool. And I think your books can, 20 questions, a powerful book, and give me another thought of a couple of questions and a different approach to those questions as well.
Questions are key. You're right on target. There's that old saying that almost is dismissed as a cliche these days, but I think it's still extremely powerful. And that is, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And questions show that you care.
And based on little tweaks in the questions, you can get a completely different information from a person. Just using a different angle, but I think intent behind those questions are a lot more important. why are you asking the question, what your intent is. Are you trying to provide a better service, or are you simply asking questions for sake of questions, or are you trying to better connect? I think intent behind those questions are very critical as well.
And oftentimes, for me, that's a great way to start the question. If you've got people who are wondering, why are you asking these questions? Share your intention so I can better understand you. So I
Mhm.
really know what works for you to clear the air, to make sure there's agreement, whatever the intention is, so they know where you're coming from.
Yeah, great point. Kids, I enjoy our discussion. I learned so much from you. I learned so much from your books. I will encourage all the business leader watching, or listening to us on a podcast, connect with you, have a discussion with you, and who knows where the discussion can take you. But I'll definitely encourage business leaders to click a button, connect with you, have a discussion, and enjoy the conversation like I did. I learned so much from your books. Learned so much from you in a discussion. So I appreciate all the work you've been doing. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Zimmerman. It was a pleasure talking to you.
My privilege. Have a great day, and thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you.